Montreal, and has been in an on and off relationship with the Learn to Code movement and the tech/game industry since 2011. Then joining by Skype is Nora Loreto, who is an author, activist, and musician based in Quebec City. She's the author of From Demonized to Organized, Building the New Union Movement, and is the editor of the Canadian Association of Labour Media. Nora was the target of cyberbullying last year after she was reflecting on the record-breaking fundraising campaign for the victims of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash and questioning why we were more generous when the victims are mostly young white men. Second, also joining by Skype, is Lido Pimienta, who is a Toronto-based Colombian-born interdisciplinary artist whose work explores the politics of gender, race, and identity. Her most recent album, La Babesa, was self-released and the winner of the 2017 Polaris Music Prize. She was the target of cyberbullying last year in relation to her call for women of color to come to the front of the stage at her performances. So now we have the trailers for the next 2 weeks that we have the films coming up, and afterwards we'll have the film netizens and the Q&A, so thank you.
Okay, so Nora's here as well, that's fantastic. It's Svetla here, and Gersande La Flêche is here as well, who's also has experience with cyberbullying and online harassment, and Lido Pimienta is also on the screen, so this is kind of epic, it's amazing. Lido, you saw the film?
Yes.
And I'm just gonna have a very open, and be like, what did it make you feel with regards to what you experienced, and what are some thoughts it brought up, and of course, more importantly, how did you? I'm kind of gonna ask all of you actually about how you responded to what happened to you, and what are some strategies you deployed in resisting that onslaught.
Yeah, thank you. The first thing after watching the film today, I have so much respect for women, especially on fasting, because you know when you enter a public persona or when you use the internet or interactions, you feel you only look at the positive, the interesting. You only think about the good people that hear music, so appreciate those are the same people that will all the time. But quickly, you know, if you get to another platform where people kind of watch you, it can be dangerous. And I learned it in two parts in my life. First, meeting someone who was not emotionally stable, and then years later, become a more public person, and then I became this target. So when the harassment that was happening, the thing that I was most concerned was my child. Was in 2017, he was 10 years, and we know so I had to tell him, you can't be online anymore because of what he would find about myself. So that concern of your family, that's what was so, oh, hey! The concern was my family. What are my family are going to be very concerned. So, and they were. So my sister who's in Florida, she's very, have all this like praying chain so that no one would do anything to me, because I was also in tour in Europe. We couldn't tell people where I was going, we couldn't tell people where I was playing because we were very afraid that someone would do something to me. So I watched the film and I saw myself in every single person in the film, because all of those things happen and you don't think that it would ever happen to you, but you know, you go through it, and as you go through it, then you start developing the coping mechanisms. right? And it's very slowly, you know, I thought about quitting music and being a public person every single day when the harassment was happening. But little by little, you know, you start realizing and you remember why you are a performer, why you're an artist, why you're an activist, why you are in your practice. And that's what kept me going.
Nora, hello. It's great to see you on screen too. And
Hi.
we basically started off with an open question about what the film brought to mind with regards to the way what you experienced and how you responded to what you experienced as well.
Yeah, so the thing that's most important for me when I talk about what I experienced or what I know other people have experienced with online harassment is that acts differently. There's no right way to react, that the way you react is based on so many factors related to the kind of person you are, the kind of security you have, where you might be physically located. And that sometimes I think people need to hear that, because when you go through a shitstorm online, there's no rule book in how to deal with it. And I feel like a lot of people feel like, you know, you have to respond. If you shut your account down, you're not doing the right thing. Like they've got you or whatever. And it's like trying to understand how to do what is right for you. So for me, I've been in kind of like controversial spaces for many years. I went through the student movement, which is a really intense way to get your sea legs in politics. And when I became kind of in this storm last April around a tweet that I posted about the fundraising of related to bus crash accident. It was not the first time that I had been targeted. Like I've been targeted by like neo-Nazis more than a decade ago. And so for me, like the way that I reacted was actually just about how I react to these things. But I don't, like, you know, I responded to a lot of trolls. I responded to a lot of people. I didn't shut down my account. I undid my apps or whatever. But that was just me. That's not a prescription. And I think that the reality of online harassment is that it is so all-encompassing that if you have to go offline for a period of time, like absolutely do that. Talk to the people who you trust, and get their support to get through something like that, because it can be really horrible. Like in my case, you know, I lost jobs. I was blacklisted by Maclean's, and I found out later on I was probably like across all the Rogers media holdings, because I haven't been able to get anything placed in Rogers even since. And so it's really isolating. But had I lived anywhere but Quebec City, it would have been way worse. I mean, the threats were coming in English, and no one here speaks English. So that right off the bat was like, I'm not afraid to leave my house. When someone says I'm staring through your window right now, I'm in a driveway staring in your window right now, I know for a fact that's not true, because I don't have a driveway. So it's very specific, but I know other folks in Toronto related to Black Lives Matter, folks in Halifax, that have gone through horrible, similar situations as me, but it was much more local, as in you don't know if the threats are coming from literally outside your front door. And it's really horrible because, you know, this is a free speech issue. This is about doing activism. It's about doing art or writing or having a career or having your voice heard. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said that this last year hasn't been complete shit. But, and sorry, I'm swearing, but at the same time, unfortunately, the online harassment's just a part of my life. Like even this morning, I had some kid from Peterborough call me a name on Twitter. And then when it was like exposed that he went to a particular high school in Peterborough, Ontario, he started begging me to like take down the tweets. And it's like, nope. You shouldn't have called me a whore for no reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
A few people lost their jobs when my whole thing was happening, when it was at the heat of the moment, for sure.
Yeah, and like following up with employers, one of the tactics I really like doing is following up with employers and being like, can you check in on this individual? Like, this is the message that I'm receiving. Do I need to like actually fear for my life? Can you check in on this person and see if they're okay? And in some cases, the person's like, whoa, holy crow, like, yeah, I will. I did that with one guy, and his mom was like, as you can imagine, we're at our wit's end. We don't know what to do with our son. And it's like, whoa, yeah, like, not only is that not good enough, but it's also systemic failures in isolation, in the mental health system and services that we offer, and just giving people like interventions that are not always the maximum intervention. Like, do we have a way in society to take care of one another and break isolation that isn't just hospitalization, for example?
Gersande, do you have anything to add to that, maybe to respond in any way?
Yeah, well, so like speaking about like the institutional responses, especially once you start looking at carceral responses. So when everything was happening in 2015, it sort of got very serious, and a family member that was living in the US started getting very credible death and rape threats, and it was linked to what was going on with me. It was because of what was happening with me that my family member was getting these threats, and we had to get the FBI involved, and it was like kind of this whole like not great thing that ended up jeopardizing immigration and like very insecure like status in the U.S. And it was it's very disheartening still to think that like they're not only, when I called the police back in 2014, 2013, when I still thought that the police would help, the answers I got from the SPVM here were just like, lol, no. Like, they did not believe, they didn't even write down anything, they didn't think that anything I was saying was credible. And then later on, with dealing with the FBI in the US, was like a completely different, very serious sort of response. And what's still very frustrating to me now with a little bit of space is that I'm looking back, and from trying to get away from like our carceral way of thinking, I'm still not sure what the best reactions in, like, I still feel like I should have been allowed to make a police report, and like and then like going to the FBI, which endangered someone. Like it's like these are very broken. Well, they're not broken. They're working the way they're supposed to be working, but it's broken for us, you know. And so yeah, so I'm just like responding to that. Like, one of the funny things about the documentary is that prosecutor was like, I want to change the way this is, like, I want prosecution to go forward. I want like this to move. And it's very sad, because like that is like the only recourse we really have in the current system, but it's also like a very like harmful, and like it perpetuates a lot more harm too. So yeah. Anyways, that was just like what Nora just said sparked within me.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question that Gersande is actually raising, and I was wondering what you think, Lido, maybe about that in terms of what are our strategies to deal with that, maybe without necessarily causing more harm, but also while protecting ourselves in these situations and making sure we continue to do the work we do and we come out stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you don't necessarily have to send a person to jail for posting a gif of someone. I mean, yeah. So I got a lot of the things that I got was gifs that people would make of monkeys, and then they would juxtapose my face on the monkeys. I also got little boomerangs that would have like instructions on how to kill yourself. So if you get 100 of those in an hour, you know, and from a lot of people, and if one person is writing you on Twitter, like straight up, like here's the photo, and you go on their profile and you see them sharing time with like their family, and it's like, oh, this guy's like a really nice dad. Like I don't think that this person should go to jail. I feel like these people are usually using the internet. They're using the internet to express themselves, whether it's bad or not. And we're dependent on technology. We're depending on the media. So I feel like if you have an account and you're even if you create whatever email is attached to this account, I feel like there's gotta be a way that just like a credit card will be frozen if someone steals it, your account and your online everything should also be frozen. I feel like that is a way that like they should be able to digitally track, and we definitely have the technology to digitally track people and freeze them, right? Like you should be able, like if I am gonna constantly attack a person, a celebrity or a regular person, whatever, whoever you're online bullying or online harassing, like you should have your media, your computers, you be attached to some sort of accountable digital mechanism that will affect your credit cards. Like I feel like the way that people listen is when their money is jeopardized. Like all the I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. I was confused after, well, you got fired for sending me this picture of myself dead. So that you want to get fired. You don't want to get fired. I don't want you to get fired because you're probably supporting your family, but I also don't want to be in fear of going to my show because I depend on going to and playing music shows. So now we were facing, well, I'm not going to be able to tell people to come to my show, and like I am a racialized person, I am a colonial subject. So the worst thing to me is to have people that come to see my show who are like me and have brothers or sisters that are in jail, have them and then have security checking them. So those are the things that I had to think about. It's just like it would be so wonderful if you know you strike one, strike three. You've been online harassing this person for way too long. Now you can't use your computer for a week. Like people lose it. People lose their minds if they can't, because that is the only power that these kinds of people have. That's the only power. Like what's his name? Alex Jones. You know that guy?
Yep.
That guy made a video about me. I couldn't believe it. He made a video, and his audience then were bombarding me with, go back to your country. You don't deserve to live. You should die. And your children have the worst mother in the world. It's like, and then you can handle two comments like that, but 200 in 30 minutes, that's too much. So I feel like jail ain't it, because that's only gonna make people more mad, and it's gonna give people even more ammunition and entitlement to go after you. And actually, the trauma from being incarcerated, but all I did was write 3 words, that would trigger real violence. Even though, yeah, I mean, maybe physical as in I'm gonna do something physically to your body, because the emotional damage that these online harassers do is very real. I remember finishing a beautiful show in the Netherlands, and then getting in the van and just crying to the whole, just crying and crying and crying and crying. It's just like it's not good. It's not good. But take away their tools and see, what kind of therapy can someone like that have? Like, I have no idea, but what I know is that, my kid is 11 years old now, like he just turned 11, and we have to have those conversations because this is our generation now. Like, this is our generation. This is what we are, people of computers, it's like our kids that are born now know they know screens. So that's the best that we can do, is just take this information that we have now and make sure that moving forward, people are more careful.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, there are structural elements to this, and so like we need academics to take our data. Like, I was shocked that not a single academic asked me for my cache of threats to map this and to understand it. You know, I never had the opportunity to go to the police because there was no fucking way I was going to try to explain this in French to the Quebec City Police. Like, just not possible. My French is not that great, right? And so for me, like, I thought a lot about how do we disrupt this, and the reality is that the left has nothing on what the right has, but we do have like rational researching people to think about this stuff, and so we need to call out researchers and academics and the journalists that aren't total garbage to be like, can you help us understand where this is coming from? Like, there was a direct line in my case coming from one guy who said, you are going to regret this, to the editor-in-chief of the Toronto Sun, to fucking Jason Kenney and Sarah Palin. Direct line in 3 days for me. And then, yeah, I was getting a message every 8 seconds for like a week. And it's like, the police don't even enter into that conversation, because this isn't about the person, that one guy who I know who he is, and he lives in a basement in Red Deer, Alberta, and his life is kind of sad. It's like, I don't need that guy to go to jail. I need us to understand that no one goes viral by accident, that the goal in making someone go viral is to inflict harm upon them, whether that is external harm or to convince them to self-harm. And if that's the case, then we need to better understand and come up with tools to combat this. And you know, as we go along, there's people that have expertise, and I've definitely talked to people that have gone through something since what I've gone through, and given them like my ideas and my advice, and you save everything and you share what you can, and you stand what you can, and you don't put yourself through too much. But it's the structural side of this that we absolutely need to get better at identifying.
Not much. I think there's, I think there have been a few I think there was a thing about MindGeek and Pornhub in the actual documentary about the stuff about getting revenge porn taken down. But of course, MindGeek still hasn't, as far as I know, I could be wrong on this, but as far as I know, Pornhub still doesn't have specific terminology in their terms of service against revenge porn. Right? So, like, you can sort of react to the harm that's already been done too late, but and that's kind of how like a lot of these things are built. You can sort of react. So from like the algorithmics infrastructure of a lot of the underlying technology, not much is actually being built. And for instance, I've just discovered, actually, I think it was yesterday or today, that like several major secret Facebook groups that were being used by people of color in North America to share their experiences and talk about tactics and deal with like online harassment and like racism and all, like a lot of that's getting shut down automatically by Facebook now. So like if you put people of color in your Facebook description, if you're making a new group, Facebook automatically flags that and takes it off the internet. So like there's a lot of, and I'm sure Nora and Lido can like elaborate on this, but like a lot of the actual algorithmic tools that are being like throttled out are really inept and attacking the left.
Nora and Lido, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack, because we always want to look for this protection in the law, but we're right now in this moment that we didn't have before, where we have so much power with our laptops and our phones and all that stuff. So I am someone who doesn't trust the police for obvious reasons, but when you have old men, right? Like even in the documentary, like I love the part. I mean, I didn't love it, I hated it, but when she had her first the first talk, and the man was like, whoa, as a guy, like he started, as a guy, just like roll your eye, like why do you let it affect you so much? Like that's a cop. That's what a cop will tell you. A cop will tell you, well, someone is shut off your computer, turn it off, right? So I don't see how that will work. I feel like, yeah, when we create these groups, like I want to, I don't know how to get a hold of a hacker. Like I feel like like hackers is where it's at. Like hackers, like make a group with a hacker, and like my baby daddy number one, like he never sends money for my kid, right? And if I report him, then they'll like garnish his wages, right? So like I feel like that's sort of like the only way that I think that it would like this would work, because if you can't make money, then you really are screwed, and then you'll be able to see, is this really necessary? And I remember when I was at the peak of the harassment that I was experiencing, what you were saying before about the left versus the right, and the power, and how the energy that they have to hate. I was like, I need my fan base to love me and show support to me as fiercely as these people are showing me hate. So then this beautiful moment happened where the people that care about me and understand where I'm coming from were going neck and neck with these people. So this other war online started happening. I don't even remember how things started to slowly disappear. I spent here and there from people just like, oh, kill yourself, you are racist. Um, but this is the thing, is that we're in this moment where our generation has to define what's going to happen in the future. And like maybe it means that let's just not even be on Facebook anymore, but how are we going to build such a platform? So it's all of these things that are joined together. And I was thinking, because I do different workshops in my practice, and one of the workshops that I teach for women is how to ask for more money, or how to how to say no, and in their industries, and how to be compensated fairly, and so on and so on. I'm like, I feel like these are the spaces that are mouth to mouth, that are not digitally tracked, are the spaces where we need to be talking between women and non-conforming folk. Like we need to be together and like actually have technology outside of the space, so that when you have for work, because we use technology for our work, then have the tools. And another thing that I was reminded of when watching the film, um, and I talk about this in my set. Like, there's one song that I wrote for this guy who was threatening to put my naked photos online if I didn't take him back, because he was physically abusive. So I broke up with him. So before I went to the police, I broke up with him. I didn't want to go to the cops, but I needed to do it because he was harassing me, and he was like, "I'm gonna put these photos of you online." And now I laugh about it. I wish I had those photos, because I had no cellulite. I was so hot. Oh my god! And I always say that in my shows, and I can laugh about it now. But it's like, because he would send me, 1,000 or 500 texts when I didn't answer, I was able to photograph all of that, and the language of text that's what the cops would understand. But I think about it, if I would talk to those same police right now and show them all the photographs and from the people telling me to kill myself, they would be like, what did you do? And we don't know how to take care of this. So now that I know what that's like, now I can do this workshop with people one-on-one and tell them this is what's going to happen if you ever become viral. Even if what the thing that you're doing and bringing to the world is beautiful, a lot of people are not going to like it. And this is what you have to do, and this is how you're going to be able to survive it. And that has to be mouth to mouth.
100%. I mean, that's exactly where I wanted to go with that as well. The reality is that the algorithms don't work in our favor. They will not work in our favor, and they cause harm, and we don't control them. And they will be used against us, right? Like, I have been banned from Twitter more times for taking on trans exclusionary radical feminists than they have of me. Like, I mean, it's just, that's kind of the reality that we live in. And so building those real life communities is super critical. And breaking out of our online communities as well, meeting people, if you can meet them face to face, like, amazing. If you can't meet them face to face, then at least take yourself out of the platform of like a public discussion on Facebook or on Twitter and meet them in direct message. I really felt like I needed to have that support as well. But what was hard for me was that the support was happening at the same time as the hatred. And so I also didn't see a lot of really great comments. And I tried not to feel guilty about that because, like, I went offline, I had to. But when we see someone going through this, we need to do what we can to help and to intervene if we can. Or in my situation, what was unbelievably critical was an article that was written by the publisher of Briarpatch magazine in Regina that helped to create, like, to actually point out the lines between what happened and how they happened. And so there was an external explanation, and it wasn't just me saying, no, I didn't go viral because the timing was wrong or whatever. Finding ways to reject a dominant narrative with alternative means, I think, is really important. But the technological side is just going to get worse, and there's nothing going to save us.
I agree. Like, I do agree. Despite sort of being a renegade programmer, I'm sort of the opinion that these websites are not really built for us. We're the product, and so they will never inherently be in our best interests. And then I think the other thing that I also wanted to say, sort of related to Nora's point about the institutional support, if you have institutional support, you and you believe what I'm telling you, you believe what Lido and Nora is telling you, then it's 100% more important for you to actually make those statements and for you to come out and loudly make those statements. Because what was extremely frustrating is that I was having people from involved with the alt-right showing up at my workplace here at Concordia, and professors were just like, oh, you know what, it's fine, free speech, he can say what he wants, he's just a misguided boy, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that destroyed me, like, just completely destroyed me. So if you do have institutional backing, you do need to use that power for good, because most of our institutions are built on very, like, colonial and violent grounds and structures. So yeah, that's the only other thing I'd like say on top of the finding community outside of these mass spaces is, like, if you do have institutional support, please use it for good.
Is there a burning question in the audience? It's getting late. I know Nora has to run. Maybe we have time for one very quick question. Okay.
Well, I can sort of see where you're coming from in terms of like it's the privatization of the commons through the web. Yeah. Like, all of these public spaces are actually private spaces because they're private property of companies, which is kind of a mind twist when you think about it. Yeah, so I guess we never really resolved as a society the question of, like, trans people allowed in public spaces? Are women allowed in public spaces? Are people of color, black people, indigenous people allowed in public spaces and allowed saying what they need to say? As a society, we never said, yes, that's obvious, because clearly it's not when we have these things happening. So, yeah.
Nora and Lido, if you have any last words to add, I think that it's getting late and you probably all want to go to bed, so.
I would say that the keep calm and carry on British proverb makes people not want to be involved. So I would say that if you see that this is happening to someone, even if you don't know them, you know, especially if you're white cis man, right? You need to step in, you know? It's like, if you're in the streetcar or you're in the subway or whatever and someone's out of line, don't just sit there, react, right? Because I feel like a lot of this is about feeling like people aren't listening. And when you don't do anything, then you're allowing for all these people who have the non-fulfilled lives and the, you know, because I just try to put myself in the heads of these people that have all this time to spend a whole day creating 4 or 5 different accounts with 5 different emails on Twitter, and I know it's the same person attacking me. You know, it's like, how sad must you be to be attacking me? You know, I don't have that kind of time. I wish I had that kind of time. And if I had that kind of time, I would be sleeping. I would not be online harassing anybody. I would be sleeping, eating and sleeping. But that's not what it is. So I feel like if you see it happening online, write them, you know, and say like, are you okay? And come from a place of understanding and a place of caring. Aggressive to someone who's being an aggressor, they are just going to come back with hate and violence. So I found a lot of the people, when I took my time and I started to feel like myself again, I would DM the person, or I would get in private messages, and I would say, you know, I took 5 minutes of my day to look at your profile, and I from the photos I saw that you're such a wonderful mother. You know, I am a mother too, and I would start this, you know, but I don't have time to do it with 100 people or 1,000 people. But even with one person, it made a huge difference, because I would turn around, like it would turn around, right? Like the people would be like, oh, you're actually not that bad, and I never saw it from your point of view. So I feel like, you know, do something, not attack them and be like, well, you're ugly and fuck you. You know, that's not gonna make your case better. We need to use our intelligence and just be like, you know, this person has done remarkable things in their career. You should really see it. And even that creates this sense of community, because that's the only thing that we can really do right now. Because one person might be in Columbus, Ohio, the other person might be in Toronto, the other person might be your neighbor, and you don't know. So just, my advice is for people, if you're harassed, or you've seen someone being harassed online, get involved. Just get involved, you know?
Yeah, so yeah, and sorry, I have to run. I have a soccer game actually that started a little bit ago. The thing I think that's really important for me is to see this as the new policing and as the new state and corporate forces to shape public opinion. And so they come after those of us who get under the skin of something. They either like we get under the skin of capitalism, or we get under the skin of racism or of colonialism for whatever reason. And so these are targeted movements of yes, real people, but also bots. And the combination of the two makes it really hard to see who's real and who's not. I also had a lot of conversations with people who direct messaged me, and they were really positive, actually. Like, it was a really positive couple of months that followed where I was able to follow up with people and say, what exactly do you think I said? And then kind of go through statistics and structural racism and whatever. And so these forces, right-wing forces, that, you know, whether it's the government, whether it's corporations, whether it's the state, so CBSA or cops or whatever, they want you to feel afraid of doing this, and they want you to stay quiet because you can't deal with the barrage of hate for whatever reason. You're in precarious employment, or you're not white, or you don't have security at home, or your parents don't support you and you live with them, and it would get awkward if all of a sudden you got threats showing up at your door, like whatever it is. And that is intended to reconstruct the power of the state and continue to destroy social movements. And so reject that. See these things as being forces that are connected to a social project that is in direct opposition to people power, and find ways in your community to do the real life work and to navigate the online world that makes you feel safe and comfortable, recognizing that these are not platforms we control, and all of our relationships are mitigated by whatever is between me and all of you right now, Skype, for example. And if we start seeing it in these terms, I think that we find better solutions for how to build that community that is so critical to break the isolation. Like, we're more connected than we've ever been before. We're also more isolated. Like, what an unbelievable paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Gersande, do you have last words? No? You're good? Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you all so very much. It was a really incredible to have you here with us. And we promise to find a way to bring you all together one day in one room.
Oh,
that would be
fun.
amazing. Enjoy, and thank you greatly from all of us here. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.